home stretch. Streaming goes global. On 46, Tryon says, this is right at the beginning of streaming goes global. In turn, these services, meaning digital delivery services, help to illustrate the challenges of making universal claims. The challenges of making universal claims. So this relates to stuff that we never really got into too much, and maybe we'll take you tell me if you want for me to go into this a little bit more in the future about making ahistorical claims. Not interchangeable, but oftentimes kind of related. And so what he means here is that the streaming companies, whether it's someone like Netflix and Hulu, when they're offering content internationally, right, it's very easy for them to kind of make sort of provocative statements about, again, the kind of freedom of content and access that they're allowing for everyone in the world, as if it's, universal, right, as if it's applicable across the board. And I just want to kind of emphasize this, again, just to sort of sharpen our kind of critical thinking skills. If we think in terms of like universal, right, general, and this is why it gets kind of tricky, even objective, right, that these are not totally unrelated, right? And the thing is that I'll even make a claim, right? It's like it becomes incredibly difficult, perhaps not impossible, but very close, to make universal claims that are applicable to everyone. And so what he's trying to point out is that not even like on a granular level of individuals, even on a broader level of like when you get to certain parts of the world, a claim can fall apart. And so you have to be very, very careful in how specific, and this is why I keep like insisting on precision, right? Because especially like given now, right, it's like it's easy to make a kind of universal claim about like, COVID-19 isn't very serious. For whom? Like it's plenty serious for like a lot of fucking people, right? So you just want to be careful with something like this, right? Anyways, so in that sense, what he's pointing out is that like when you really start to look tight and close, something like a universal claims becomes much and much more kind of frayed and less tenable, right? And that's why we kind of have to always constantly widen our scope, think about other people, right? That's really what this all comes down to, as you've heard me throughout the semester. And so the other thing is that, again, similar to everything we've talked about so far, the kind of streaming services looking abroad and internationally is not some sort of like humanistic impulse, right? It's not necessarily utopian, but they point out that it's rather a response to piracy, right? That Tryon is pointing out, like, no, like they're just trying to, they know there's piracy in parts of the world. They mentioned China, they mentioned Latin America especially. Why is there piracy? Because it's like infrastructurally, they're not getting the content, right? So they want access to the content, and the only way in a lot of these cases is to get it illegally, right? And so, it's this idea of like, well, we're hemorrhaging this revenue, right? It's like it's revenue that could be gained. So we'll just offer the service, right? And try and kind of capitalize on that, right? So this is another instance of like the importance of infrastructure, right? Whether it's internet access, whether it's like in the case of like they talk about China in terms of, I think it'll come up on Thursday too, but in terms of the quota, right? Meaning that there's a nationally mandated number of foreign films that they can import. So it's like if it's down to, I should know the number off the top of my head, but let's say a set number, you know, like that just automatically limits what is going to be able to be screened and distributed in a place like China, right? And also just one thing, but again, just to kind of like emphasize the language of targeting. So, you know, both as a noun and a verb, let's say the producers are targeting international consumers. Just, you know, like what does that say about the relationship, right? Like this is what they are doing, targeting them, right? And also of penetration, right? Like penetrating markets, right? This kind of forceful language, right? This will come up on Thursday in terms of Amazon and the importance of rhetoric and language, and especially the relationship between producer and consumer, which is, you know, we're generally on this side, but constantly thinking about how am I being perceived, how am I being interpolated, right? What does the producer think of me? Again, my kind of go-to example being, is it that, for example, Netflix really cares about, you know, my desires, my anxieties, my history, you know, my life, or